Have you heard about Muthoni Nyanjiru? Did you know that she was a leading force against colonial imperialism? I am Joana, yet another Africa's Untold Stories. Everyone talks about the men who fought the British, but the real fire came from women just like Muthoni Nyanjiru. In 1922, Harry Tuku, a young nationalist leader, was arrested for opposing British exploitation and forced labor. Imagine that. First, they would do it, and later they will now abolish it and say they abolished it, making just that part of the abolishment a separate deed of achievement. Anyway, a crowd gathered demanding his release, but to no avail, so they went to pray. After praying for Tuku's safety, the crowd dispersed. That evening, women supporters engaged in a practice called oathing, a custom exclusive to men. Oath taken by women violated Kikuyu tradition, as women were considered to be mentally unfit and physically unable to endure the ordeal of taking oaths. The next day, they gathered again, demanding the release of Harry Tuku. But I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name well. Sorry, but soon realized he might never be released. Remember those women who conducted that oath-taking ceremony? Yes, they began to agitate and pace their way forward, even when the male crowd was hesitant to challenge the armed police. Mary Muthoni Nyanjiru, if you are Kenyan, you know how to pronounce it, do it for me, leaped to her feet, ran to the front of the crowd, lifted her dress up over her head and cried, "You take my dress and give me your trousers. You men are cowards. What are you waiting for? Our leader is in there. Let's go and get him." Now, let's understand that this is a random act. There's a traditional tactic called guturamia ungiana. It was considered a serious insult among Kikuyu, a cause to see a woman of your mother's age naked. This tactic was rarely used, but when it was deployed, it indicated that the authority of the men that were there no longer was recognized in that situation, and it's considered a symbol of a woman's defiance. The crowd surged forward until the police, or askari, opened fire. Nyanjiru was among the first people killed. What's an askari? An askari, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it very well. I think it's like a Swahili way to refer to soldiers or military, also police in Somalia. Was a local soldier serving in the armies of the European colonial power in many parts of Africa. In French colonialism, the word is used only in reference to native troops outside the French colonial empire. During the period of the European colonial empire in Africa, locals were recruited as soldiers and designated as carriers. They played a crucial role in the conquest of various colonial possessions, and subsequently they served in garrison and internal security force. During both two wars, First World War and Second World War, as carry units also served outside their colonies of origin in various parts of Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia. Now let's get back to our story. Mary Muthoni Nyanjiru, she was shot dead. Muthoni turned her body into a weapon of defiance, immortalizing courage in the face of colonial guns. Her sacrifice exposed the brutality of British rule and inspired future freedom fighters, including the Mau Mau. Muthoni Nyanjiru, often referred to as the Martyr of Nairobi, didn't just fight for freedom. She refined leadership in our era. On this journey, we're going to uncover stories that the world thinks is irrelevant, stories that complete history, stories that tell you about the resistance against opposition. We will decipher the meaning of various looted objects. Stay tuned though, follow, share, drop your comments always, because I read them. I am Joana.